Hello everyone, in today's video I'm going to be modeling a wheel which I will be using for the 1/25th scale 83 Camaro build, as well as adding this design to the Make It RC shop at some point soon. For those of you who have seen some of my previous videos where I have modeled wheels, the design process I'm using to model this particular wheel is similar to how I've designed other ones that I've shown previously. I'm starting off with a base sketch, which I will use to make a lot of extrusions and cuts as I begin to create the 3D model. Unlike with some of the wheels I've designed previously, where I create a sketch on top of a reference image, for this I'm not really trying to model anything to look exactly like any specific full-size wheel, but instead more of just a general design that I've seen used on a variety of production and aftermarket wheels. The wheel that you see on the right of the screen is an American Racing VF306, which is what I'm using as a reference, though I will deviate from this design a bit later on, but that wheel is basically the look that I'm going for. Here I'm adjusting the position of the lines that will create these spokes until the angle and the thickness is how I want it. As I've mentioned previously when designing numerous different components such as wheels, it's very important to keep in mind the difference in size of what you are making versus the full-size version you're using as a reference. What I mean by this is what might be plenty strong on a full-size version, such as one of the spokes on this American Racing VF306 wheel, will be very thin and weak when shrunken down to 1/25th scale, as well as be difficult to print. So I need to make things such as the spokes of the wheel that I'm designing thicker than the reference so that they will be strong enough in this small scale. Though I anticipate this wheel will still be fairly fragile, as is the nature of having detailed parts that are this small. Once I'm satisfied with the design, I use the circular pattern command to duplicate this design around the wheel. Next, I create a circle, which I will later use to create the bolt heads visible around the outer edge. Next, I begin sketching some of the elements in the center of the wheel, such as where the center cap and the lug nuts will be. The center of the wheel that I'm designing will look quite a bit different from the reference image seen on the right. With this initial sketch complete, I can now begin extruding from it. I don't want the spokes to simply be flat, but instead have a bit of a convex shape, just like how the full-size wheel would be. To do this, I create a sketch profile perpendicular to the previous, and use a spline to create the curved shape. To get a better idea of how it looks, I enter the Sculpt workspace and revolve the sketch line into a face and make some further adjustments to the sketch. Once satisfied, I create an offset to add thickness to the spokes. As I talked about previously, I need to make sure I make the spokes thick enough so that they will not break easily. After evolving the new sketch, I use the original sketch to cut the holes for the spokes. I once again made a few minor adjustments to the sketch, since I felt that the transition between the flat section and the curvature of the spokes was a bit too sharp. At this point, the wheel is really starting to take shape. The next thing I do is extrude the outer rim. Once again referencing the original sketch, I begin adding the lug nuts. The first thing I did was extrude the outer diameter to create a cylinder which I will use to cut holes which the lug nuts will be added to. I wanted to adjust the outer diameter of the openings just a little bit, which I did by modifying the original sketch. In hindsight, after just printing out these wheels, I will probably go back and increase the diameter of this opening so that they will show up more prominently on the actual part. I now wanted to work on the back. I first needed to create a hexagonal opening for the wheel mount to fit into. Once that was complete, I moved on to making the center cap. Here I'm adjusting the position of the lug nuts so that they sit a little further back. I noticed a thin section above the lug nut openings. I added some material over top in the form of a brace to make this section thicker and hopefully add a bit more strength. To finish up the wheel, I beveled some of the edges. And with that complete, I was satisfied with the appearance of the wheel. To add some more detail, I wanted to design a brake disc that can be glued to the backside of the wheel. It's a very simple addition, but I think it will add a lot to the overall appearance. After getting the overall shape of the disc how I want it to look, I added some slots to give it a bit more detail. I make sure not to make the slots too small so that they will show up when printed. To finish off the wheel, I wanted to add a simple tire. To do this, I created a sketch through the middle of the wheel and projected it onto the sketch plane. I then used a line to designate the top of the tire and used a spline to create the sidewalls. After mirroring the sketch, I revolved it to create the tire. I decided to add some simple tread similar to what you would find on a racing tire. I used the revolve command to once again cut 2 tread lines around the tire. Next, I sketched the shape of a simple tread pattern that I would like to add to the outer portions of the tire. I then projected the sketch onto the surface. I moved to the patchwork space and turned the projected sketch into a face. Finally, I thickened the face to create a solid body, which I can duplicate by creating a circular pattern around the tire and mirroring it to the opposite side, and then use the combine tool to cut the treads into the tire. Here's a look at the finished result. I was pleased with the final design, so I printed out a set, which turned out great. The wheels look awesome and will look even better after cleaning and painting. They also feel solid and shouldn't be too easy to break. I did a quick mock-up with the 83 Camaro body. I think these wheels look great on this car. I'll probably end up printing out a version of these wheels with different measurements to use on this particular vehicle, but the design is definitely the look that I wanted. And that is all for today's video. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you next time.